I'm Mike Link. Welcome to Full Length Mississippi.
I'm Kate Crowley, and we're on the Stone Arch Bridge right now, which is a historic bridge, crosses over the Mississippi River, which is behind us. You can see the massive St. Anthony Falls, and a little further beyond that is the beautiful city of Minneapolis. Mike and I both grew up here in Minneapolis along the banks of this river, and so it's a big part of our history. And the city itself was established in this location because of this great river. A couple of years ago, Mike and I finished a walk around Lake Superior, and almost as soon as the walk ended, which was 1,555 miles, Mike started thinking about another adventure. And our walk around Lake Superior was a lot of different goals. One of the main reasons was to focus on freshwater and freshwater issues. And so the Mississippi does make a good follow-up. As Mike said, it's called Full Length Mississippi, and our goal is to bike from the Gulf to the headwaters in spring of 2013, and then in the fall, the following fall, to bike from, well, it'll be a combination of biking and riding on boats going from the headwaters back to the Gulf.
One of the things that we're concerned about is fresh water. There's a lot of things happening to fresh water. You hear words like fracking that goes on, in which we seem to be so indifferent to our groundwater, injecting chemicals into the ground because we want to get gasoline and energy. But we have only so much fresh water in the world, the same amount that was here when the dinosaurs and the same amount that will be here in the future. And what we do to the fresh water during our lifetimes will affect the lives and the freshwater resources of all the generations to follow. We're concerned about that. As grandparents, we want to make sure that our grandkids have good fresh water. Fresh water and fresh air are the two essentials to life. We have to have food and shelter, but without fresh water and fresh air, our lives are very short and very bad. So we're concerned about that, and the state of Minnesota is the beginning of the Great Lakes, and it's the beginning of the Great River. And the Mississippi River encompasses a watershed that has 31 states and 2 provinces in it. It's one of the largest water areas in the world. And when you take the Mississippi and combine it with the Missouri, that stretch of river is the longest in the world. So we're moving a lot of material from up here down south. And along the river, it's not just Minneapolis, but going further, it's towns like Dubuque and Davenport in Iowa. In Illinois, there's Galena and Cairo, and in Missouri, there's Hannibal and St. Louis, and then we keep going down the river into Memphis and Vicksburg and New Orleans. From the Gulf to its source in Lake Itasca, this is a flyway. It's a source of fresh water. It's a place where natural history shifts from the boreal species, the warblers and the moose up north, to the alligators in the south. And so there's a tremendous amount of biology here. To couple along with that, there's a major set of human stories. Kate talked about the lumber and the milling that goes on here in this area. That's what this is famous for. But going beyond that, when we go further south, we find that the Trail of Tears, the terrible exodus that was forced on the American Indians, comes to the Mississippi River. So does the Underground Railway and the terrible injustices that were done to the African American people. It's the place where Lewis and Clark began our westward expansion. And so this is where America celebrates its movement to the west, but it's also, in a sense, a celebration of a very sad story of what happens to the American Indians.
We're going to focus on freshwater issues again because, as I said, the watershed is so huge. So many places draw on this river for their water. We're also doing it for scientific reasons. We're going to be making observations of the natural history. We're going to be traveling up north with migration in the spring and traveling south in the fall with migration. We're long-term environmental educators, and so it's very important to us to pay attention to the science that we can be found and studied along the river. And Mike can tell you about the GLOBE project too that we'll be working with.
GLOBE is an international program that's tied to schools, thousands of schools in every continent. And it's an internet-connected science in which scientists have worked to develop protocols for research. And the school kids are encouraged to do the citizen research and to post it on the internet. We're going to do some of those things, and we'll post it and communicate with the kids to tell them about what we see, what we observe on this great river, in hopes that they'll do the same thing in their home area with whatever rivers they have, and that we hope also to be able to see in person some of the schools that are located along the Mississippi River Valley. So this is a way in which we can communicate with a lot of kids and help encourage them in their science and observations.
My name is Mickey Weir, and it's Kinderhook, Illinois, and the building is now being used as a post office. The original owner of the building lived next door in the home. The building was built by Dr. Deco. He was an old country doctor, and actually he brought me into the world, so I feel kind of honored
Very connected.
to be here in this building, and I've been here for 18 years as a clerk. And the building, he was a rock hound, and he loved all kinds of different types of rocks from all over the world. I'm going to make you a copy in a minute of some information on it too,
All right,
so you can take it with you.
Yeah.
But many people that paid for their services, such as childbirth and illnesses and things like that, by giving Dr. Deco rocks to put in the building when he was building it.
So behind me you can see a map of the Mississippi River Delta, which makes up most of South Louisiana. And all of the red that you're seeing is historic land that is now converted into open water. Because the river here has been cut off from the delta by levees, so the water and the sediment can no longer come out into these wetlands, and so they're gradually sinking and disappearing into the Gulf of Mexico. So one of our big priorities is to install structures in these levees, gate-like structures, that would at certain times of the year be opened to let water and let sediment back out into the historic delta, so that these areas that are now open water could start to build marsh again. So if you look west on the coast to the Atchafalaya Bay, you can see these two small deltas that are growing. So the green is a sign of hope. It's a sign that the river can still build land if we will let it out from behind the levees that are keeping it straitjacketed, keeping it out of the wetlands. And we want to see little deltas like this starting to grow all across the coast as we reconnect the river to the wetlands.
So the role of the National Center for STEM Elementary Education at St. Catherine University in this project is we're the prime education partner for the project, and we are really excited about the prospect of having grandparents talking to young kids about water quality issues and how those water quality issues along the Mississippi River impact a huge number of people because of the Mississippi watershed. Another interesting aspect of the project is that Mike and Kate will be visiting GLOBE schools. So GLOBE is Global Learning and Observations to Benefit the Environment. It's a K-12 science and math education program that connects students with the environment through data collection, but also in addition to that data collection, data analysis and learning about their environment really on a very local scale, but then getting a global picture because there are over 100 countries around the world involved in GLOBE, and there are numerous schools within the country and along the Mississippi River that are also involved in the project. So having Mike and Kate visit with these students, visiting with these GLOBE schools, making a direct connection to the Mississippi River would be very, very powerful. And GLOBE has a lot of activities and scientific protocols that can also be used to determine the water quality. So getting kids really interested in that aspect, getting them out into the environment, collecting the data, but not just doing the collection, but also doing some analysis so that they can learn the story of the environment and tell the story to their parents, to their local community, is a great aspect to this project and a very powerful aspect of the project. An additional strength of the project is the fact that there are many, many partners involved in all of this, and those partners are a wide array of community organizations that are located along the river. So everything from biking groups to wildlife sanctuaries and refuges to schools to water quality organizations and just to local communities that are interested in the health of their local environment. Staff at the National Center for STEM Elementary Education and at St. Catherine University are really excited to be involved in this program, to really look at how we can integrate some of our existing courses for our students that are interested in water quality, that are doing environmental biology courses, where we do actually look at the water quality of the Mississippi River. We use data that is being collected by GLOBE students, but really giving them a direct connection with that river through the journey that Mike and Kate will be taking is also a very, very exciting part for us. And looking at how we as a community at the beginning or at the start of the river, really what kind of appreciation do we have for the river, what kind of impact do we have on the river, how we use the river, because the river really is an incredible resource that stretches from the Gulf all the way up to the northern part of Minnesota.